Hello there and welcome to the week starter edition of News Express, exclusively brought to you by Business AM, Nigeria's fastest growing financial and business newspaper. It is a new week, and of course the paper has a whole lot of interesting headlines for the week, and we'll start exactly from the front page this morning. NNPC has 2.9 billion litres of petrol for Litre, but sorry, prices just have to go up. Of course, this one's talking about the circular that was issued by the PPMC, of course, advising petroleum marketers to sell petrol within the band of 168 naira per litre to about 170 naira per litre. Of course, following what it called a review of current market fundamentals for November, and it took effect on Friday. Yes, on Friday the 13th. And just below that headline, inflation settles on Nigerian onion. New gold as food prices skyrocket. Food prices rising by over 200% across markets. Torrential rainfall, inadequate storage to blame. And now moving to page 2 of the paper, where we have African civil society groups demands AFDB officially disengage from fossil fuel projects, talking about the AFDB putting in place a fossil fuel finance exclusive policy, a policy whose funding, I would say, in financial services and capacity support, will not come from the bank itself to any coal, gas or oil project on the African continent. Now that is on page 2. You can check that one out. And on page 4, we have this one from the IMF. Global inflation higher than estimated in first 3 months of COVID-19, says IMF. Manufacturing, trade, consumer section leads sustained economic recovery. That one's on page 1. There's a lot, but let's bring in Philip Isakwa, the publisher Business AM, who will be joining us via telephone for conversations. Good morning, Mr. Philip. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, good morning. Thank you for having me.
Now let's begin our conversation with the very first story on the cover page. So earlier last week, NNPC had talked about how the strike by its members would really not affect the supply of petroleum products. I remember they mentioned that they had about 2.9 billion litres been available to serve the country during the festive period. What exactly changed? Of course, based on the new petrol price directive, which took effect on Friday.
The first response is to look at, I think it came out on Tuesday, the NNPC was responding to what appeared to be some level of panic buying, because motorists were thinking that the strike action by Henderson was going to affect a fuel supply. NNPC quickly scrambled its communications team to allay the fears of motorists, to say, as a matter of fact, we've been preparing for Litre, and that we have 2.9 billion litres of petrol stock up, and that there will be no problem with that. It's as if, okay, you've eased the tension, and then 2 days later, there was this circular that regarding adjusting the fuel prices.
Exactly.
The thing is that there is a template through which petroleum prices are measured these days. Now, we have heard a lot of talk about deregulation from the regulators, from the government and from NNPC and from everybody that's connected with managing the fuel situation in the country. But this isn't regulation. I think that's what analysts are saying. If you want to deregulate, just hands off. Let the market determine the prices.
Right.
But what you will find is that over the weekend too, we've heard of experts who have made calculations, and actually we're saying that how did you arrive at this new price for November? And because by our calculations, we can see that ex-depot price will be around 130, 135, and that, for instance, if we're to go by market fundamentals, the fuel is imported, majorly by one source, NNPC. So the market isn't regulated as they claim it is, because if you have one source importing all the fuel into the country, that means you have a monopolist who is in charge of determining a lot of things. But apart from that, you have the states across where fuel lands, because if you import fuel, it will land across the Lagos, across the
Yeah.
So there's a pricing element that is put into it, but you don't have that across Lagos, across the West, where 70% of the fuel is actually consumed. So what is responsible for price not following market forces? Because if you had that as the situation, then the price for fuel in the southwest or across the seaports, would be without the additional price that you put. They've done a lot of calculation. We don't really know what's going on. The thing is that analysts are saying that allow the market. Why don't just hands off? It appears that the economics of fuel pricing, isn't really properly looked into, or perhaps economics is so tough, that maybe some level of incompetence, or this allows incompetence to prevail in the market. So that's why you're seeing what's going on right now. On one hand, you say the regulation in the sector, and then on the other hand, you are waking up every month. But by the way, there have been price increases 5 times, this year alone.
This year already, yeah.
There have been price increases 5 times. So why don't you just allow the market play itself out, and just stay away? The government doesn't want to let go, and that is really worrying for a lot of people.
It just begs the question of what then is the regulation. But then again, we'll be expecting an upward reaction on commodity prices based on this development, which brings us to the very next headline on the cover page. Over 200% rise in food prices across markets. In addition to the increment in petrol prices, we have the border closure, we have the weakening naira. What are your other observations? And most importantly, where does it place us now? Where does it place the country, the citizens, the entire market going into the Yuletide season?
Yeah, we can understand the situation with this time of the year when prices, let's say, naturally go up. When you have festivities coming up, the demands are usually higher. And then if supply isn't enough, then you have prices. But we have noticed something remarkable about. That's why we use the headline Nigerian onion. There has been something with regards to foodstuff. A lot of demand. Apart from petroleum products, a lot of demand for commodities will be around food-related items. At this period of the year, inflation numbers are likely to come up. We are expecting the Bureau of Statistics to release its inflation numbers for October. This today. Hopefully we will get a true picture of what has happened with regards to food inflation.
Yeah.
Now, the food component of inflation calculation, it's very high. And when anything is happening across the different food items, in terms of price increases, then you are likely to find inflation, the general inflation rising. We don't really know what has happened. From speaking with farmers and speaking with experts on the field, we understand that there was, the torrential rainfall that happened around August, September, had a lot of effect on the food producing areas, especially up north, and that affected the harvest for this period. And so you had food items like onion, like tomato, and a number of such items affected by that. But apart from that is what we are finding out regarding the inability to solve post-harvest losses problem in the country. This has been on the front burner for such a long time. Storage facilities are inadequate. Government particularly does not intervene in the right order or in the right places. That government is supposed to intervene. At least with regards, we hear a lot of money being thrown into agriculture. A lot of money being spent from all sorts of funding arrangements that have been made. But we're still having post-harvest losses. As a result of the entire value chain. efforts are not being made to position government funding in specific areas that funding should go into. So you stay at the end of farming, pour a lot of money into farming. At the end of the day, nothing happens with the other value chain that are supposed to take it up. We have an organization dealing with cold storage, that has been complaining, about the lack of financing, for the storage end of the agricultural value chain. No attention has been paid to that area. They have difficulties with accessing funds from the normal channel of the banking industry, and then you don't have any intervention going into that particular area. So there's a lot of issues, you have so many things that government needs to focus on to be able to tackle inflation, especially with regards to food inflation.
Let's hope they do focus their attention in that space. Of course, now, Mr. Philip, in just a minute, take readers through other headlines, they could pay attention to this week.
There's a lot of things that they could have look at, there's a review of the fixed income and money markets activities. There's something on the capital market, what really happened last week and what to look ahead to. We have a report on the insurance industry. McKinsey did a report, that shows relationship between insurers and SME, and there's a suggestion as to how the Nigerian insurance industry should focus on SME or deal with SME. In that report, there's the concern by SMEs regarding their perception of how they are treated, question the relevance of some products that insurance companies offer them. They have learned as a result of COVID-19 that they are not adequately covered, especially with regards to the pandemic, and then what we found with this study is that they have suggested that insurers look at creating innovative products. There should be a lot of innovative product offerings to SMEs, especially with regards to technology-related products, because that's what we have seen come up. On agriculture and commodity section, there's an interesting story regarding what we call, of course, we had the onion detailed report on onion, and then a special interview on pig farming in the country and how investment is needed. So for investors and for people who are looking for opportunities, I think that interview looked about the entire value chain of pig farming in Nigeria and some areas that are lacking with regards to where investors can go in. So there's a whole lot here for investors to look at.
Indeed. Thank you so much, Mr. Philip Isakpa, for joining us today. We'll get back to you during the course of the week for, more conversations on developing stories.
Thank you very much for having me.